Hello and welcome. I'm Darren. And the benchmarks are out. The 9070 XT has been launched. Just going to talk about the 9070 XT. I don't think there's any point in talking about the 9070 non-XT because for saving $50, who wants to do that? Probably not me and probably not you. So let's get into it. We don't need to look at my ugly mug any longer. We're kind of going to go through my thoughts. Obviously, I don't have one of these GPUs. This isn't a benchmark. I don't have one. I'm on the fence of whether I want to buy one or not. So I've kind of just looked through a couple of the benchmarks. I haven't gone massively into it. I haven't sat and digested all of them. I've seen and probably listened to what I need to listen to. And it's kind of, to be fair, I think everything is pretty much around what I was expecting. It's a good GPU. I have a but. It's not. Yes, I do have a but. It's not a big but. Okay. But I do have my. I've got my kind of issues, so we'll kind of get into that. But they're not. They're my issues, so that won't be for everyone, and that will probably become clear why my issues are my issues. So anyway, before I talk much more crap, let's go to. I mean, effectively, from what we can do, it pulls more power than what I thought. That's probably the first thing that I'd say. Let's actually switch the camera and go to the desktop. So it pulls more power than what I thought. We'll get to that in a minute. That's probably the one downside when I saw the power consumption, but that's not huge. That's not a massive thing. So this GPU is very, from what we've seen so far, and how if that changes in the future, I don't know. I'm not expecting the 5070 Ti, the 5070, and the 5080 benchmarks to stay exactly what they are because there's issues with those GPUs. And I get the feeling at some point they might improve. Now, the same might happen with the 9070 XT because there are some outlying games when it performs really bad. There's some outlying games when it performs incredibly well. This is probably one where it's not performing. I don't even know what this is. So 1440p Final Fantasy. So you can see here it's not really performing particularly well. But then you'll get maybe another game like, let's click on this. So here it's performing pretty much the same as an XTX. That's performing quite well. Obviously, that other game before it was more closer to the 6950 XT, which wasn't great. We can probably find another outlier just looking. So this is performing very well. It's above the 5070 Ti. It's nearly the 4080 Starfield at 1440p, which I don't think matches Steve's benchmark. I think he had it quite far off. So there might be some anomalies to be found here. I mean, this is well above the 5070, as you can see. But then pricing is exactly how I thought pricing would probably play out. I've got a feeling we'll have to click it up. I've got a feeling Jay's 2 cents actually has some models that he gives pricing on. As far as it goes, I'd say depending on what you're running right now, if you can get this at a good price, it is a very good GPU to buy. So I'm not going to downplay it. It does come. Let me go to... In fact, let's go to Hardware Unboxed because I think they actually give you the averages. So at 1440p, let's go to... no, let's not go to ray tracing. Let's go to 1440p average in raster, which is probably where... Oh, Jesus Christ. That had to happen, didn't it? Had to happen. So 1440p, 18 game average. That's good. It's above the 7900 XT, which is where I thought it would be. So that's pretty good. It does have outlying games where it performs over the 4080. It does have outlying games where it performs more like a 4070. Whether that continues, whether the rest of these GPUs continue, like the new launches, something might change with updates and issues that they're having. Who knows? But But yeah, that is good performance at the right price. I'm not denying that. To be fair, that's where I thought it would be. I probably thought it might be a little bit closer to the XTX, admittedly. Obviously, you can see there the XTX, the 4080 Super, the 5070 Ti has dropped back a little bit there. That's quite surprising. So that's good performance. Like I said, it has games where there's, what is this? Space Marine. Huge performance over something like a 5070 Ti. Do I expect that 5070 Ti to remain there? No. I'd say there's clearly an outlying problem. I would imagine that would get addressed. And then you could probably say something like Counter-Strike. Do I expect that to stay there? No. I'd say there's clearly a problem. I wouldn't be surprised if that gets addressed. So you can kind of see as I'm flicking through it, they're generally, obviously Steve's doing a 5070 Ti against the XT. Cyberpunk raster performance works very well on AMD GPUs. You can see there that the XTX is above the 4080. That's not something new to anyone. People just kind of think because of the ray tracing that it means AMD perform bad in Cyberpunk. They do when you put ray tracing on. When you're playing at raster, they actually perform very well on that engine. So Call of Duty, the outlier for AMD. I've said this as long as I've been running my channel. If you play Call of Duty and that's your main game and that's mainly what you care about, you're not going to go wrong with a AMD GPU. They perform so well on that engine. Now, whether something changes in the future, who knows? That's probably a bit different to what AMD put on their own benchmarks. That might change from GPU to GPU. I'm not sure. So effectively, it's all pretty much where I thought. Now, obviously, when you get to ray tracing, so let's look at the averages in ray tracing. It's a huge leap in performance. So 1440p ray tracing, when you're looking at what the XTX was, it's a big leap from the XTX. In relative terms, I did think it would be closer to the 4070 Ti. I believe in some games it does get close to it, and then in some games it's quite a bit behind. It probably gets closer to it at 4K. At 4K, there's never much more than a few FPS between stuff. I probably did think it would match the 4070 Ti. Like I said, I think in some games it probably does. So in what we in here in Metro Exodus, it actually performs slightly above it, and then you've got other games where it drops back by a little bit more. So Spider-Man, I don't know what the RT implementation is like that, but it's performing above the 4070 Ti Super. So it's kind of not far off where I thought that it was actually going to be. Power, a lot more than I believe was advertised. I thought that this GPU was coming in at around just over 300 watts. Where have we got the... Have they put it in there? Where's he put the power? Oh my god. Why, YouTube? Why with your ridiculous adverts? Where did he put power consumption? Maybe it was in the conclusion. It was a little bit higher than what I thought. I was quite surprised by it. Ah, there we go. Power usage. So, power usage here is up at 443, which seems really high compared to what I thought it was going to be. I can't see that being right. Is that on a system? Let me figure this out a minute. 4080, yes, because the 4080 doesn't pull 401 watts. So, no, I'm getting that wrong. I'm being dumb here. This is on a system power. So this is obviously power usage on a system, CPU combined, probably running a 98 or a 78 100X3D. They don't pull a lot of power. So I was thinking, hold on, it's pulling 443 watts, but then looking at this, it's showing the XTX at 478, which it will randomly, but it's more like 400. So as far as it goes, it's not that bad. Yes, it's obviously pulling a bit more, but this isn't crazy numbers. So forget what I was saying about power. It's not that bad. It is pulling a bit more power than something like your 4080 or your 4070 Ti Super or your 5070 Ti or 5080 even. But it's not horrendous. It's pulling less than what the XTX was. So that's good. That's a win. No problem with that. We'll check this out. I think now this is probably one place where I did see that they've actually put a price. So the Nitro, it appears in the US, is $730. That's not horrendous. I was thinking 800, $730. Well, I'll probably end up paying 800 for it in the UK, but 730 is not bad. It's not 600, and I think we saw on, or if you've seen Jay's Two Senses videos, he did check a few models. Let's just quick check that out. So, where did he have? Oh my god. I swear to fucking God, I hate YouTube. I hate it. So, these are some... Oh, well, yeah, some of the models are going up to 850. Did he say which ones it was? Yes. So, the XFX Mercury is 850. That's... I don't know about that. I understand that some people are paying over $1,000 for a 5070 Ti. Fine, I'm not arguing that, but obviously that's far away from the 600 RRP. So I'm not surprised at that. I'm going to quick check actually while I'm here, without dragging this video out too much, if they've actually priced them yet in the UK. I don't believe they have, but I think you can kind of get an idea of what they are. Oh, they have priced them. Interesting. Okay. So, Sapphire 700. I'll buy that. If I can get that at 700, I'll buy that. The highest price one at this moment in time is the Gigabyte Aorus. Nope. Tell a lie. The tough Asus. Asus are robbing bastards. And the power collar is 700. So there's a couple of models at 800. The Sapphire is at 700. The problem with the Sapphire is you can already see, will I be able to buy it? That's going to be pretty hard. In saying that, there's 1,100. There's a lot more people after the Pulse. There's 970 people that have viewed that today. If that's 970 people that want to buy it, then we ain't buying that. But we'll take a quick look again, because I believe we get a relative performance on here. We'll check that out. So relative performance, 1440p. After all the games that they've gone through, this is obviously at raster. It puts it just above the 4070 Ti Super and just below the 5070 Ti. Still below the XTX, but above the XT. So in between the XT and the XTX, which is kind of what it was supposed to be. Again, the same thing here. Pretty much slap bang between the XT and the XTX. Not far off the XTX. Pulling less power. Interesting. So we'll go to... Is there a ray tracing? Are they doing an average for ray tracing? Or are they... Yeah, there is a relative. So relative at 1440p. 4070 Ti, 4070 Ti Super. So it's kind of where I thought it would be. In between and 4070 Ti Super in terms of ray tracing capabilities. Pretty much nailed on. The Sapphire Nitro 700, I did think it would be 800. So I was £100 off in that. If that is actually the price I am able to buy it for, we will wait and see tomorrow. If it's available for 700 quid, I'll buy it and we'll check it out. So... yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Now, let's get to where I have a problem. And we can probably stay here for where I have a problem when we go to relative performance. So let's go back. No, let's stay here at raster performance. Now, bear in mind, there's a 4080 on here. Okay. And keep that to one side because I have a 4080 and I have a 7900 XTX. Okay? And I bought my 4080 over 2 years ago. I paid just over £1,000 for it. And I bought my 7900 XTX about a year ago and I paid just under £1,000 for it. So 2 years has gone by and I can now buy another GPU for another £700 that doesn't beat the 4080 in ray tracing. And if I go back to... Oh no, we don't want to go through all of these. How can I go back? Back. We go back to relative performance. It still doesn't beat the 4080 in raster performance. So this is the only problem that I have. This is where my problem comes in. It's a my problem. It's not a huge problem. Just scooch up because I'm squishing my stitches. So I haven't looked at FSR4 yet. I'm sure there's some stuff that already appears that Digital Foundry will put some stuff up. This looks a good GPU. My problem is I bought a 7900 XTX a year ago for £1,000. Now, to actually get to somewhere that gets closer to a 4080 in a more balanced approach. So the XTX will beat the 4080 in raster in a fair few games, but not to me by a meaningful amount, not enough that matters to me. Now, this GPU isn't going to beat the 4080 in raster apart from a couple of games like Call of Duty or like some outliers. It's not going to beat the 4080 in ray tracing either. So if I bought the XTX a year ago for £1,000 and I now buy a 9070 XT for £700, that's £1,700 I've spent on two GPUs that didn't beat the 4080 that I bought 2 years ago for £1,000. That's my problem. I would have spent £1,700 on two GPUs and neither of them, the one that I had previously and the one that I'm about to buy hypothetically tomorrow, that still won't be. So effectively what I could have done is just bought another 4080 and had two 4080s and just spent £2,000 instead of buying a 4080 and a 7900 XTX and a 9070 XT costing £1,700 for both of those. So effectively I would have spent £2,700 when I could have just bought two 4080s and spent £2,000. That's my problem. And I know people won't see it that way because people don't have a certain amount of money available at a certain time or so on and so forth. But that's how it feels to me. Do I want to now spend another £700 on a GPU that's still not beating the GPU that I paid £1,000 for 2 years ago? Do I say to myself, don't buy it, Darren, just buy another, or buy a 5080 or buy a 5070 Ti? Because the 5070 Ti, when you obviously look at ray tracing performance, is still quite a lot ahead of what the 9070 XT is. So it's a good GPU. If you're on a budget, it's hard to say if you're on a budget. I mean, you're still looking at, for some of the premium models, 700, some of them going up to £800. So it's very dependent on where you are, what system you've got, what alliances you have with brands. I prefer to buy the product that I think is a good product, whatever name brand it is. I don't really care. But I do like to, when I say that, I do actually like to have one of the nice models. I don't like the really cheap plastic GPU models. So I'm never going to be someone that's going to buy the cheapest version available to try and get that RRP, because I just have a problem with spending a lot of money on something that looks incredibly plastic. But other than that, it's where it is. It's where I thought it would be. It's a good GPU. If I didn't have a GPU, if I had nothing for £700, I think that Sapphire Nitro will be a great buy. And with the ray tracing performance above what the XTX has, I think it's a better buy. I don't think it's really left the XTX in a great place. XTX is still better in raster performance, but not by a lot. Looking at this graph here, they're putting relative performance at 4K. The 9070 XT by this graph is 100%. The XTX is 105%, so there's not a huge amount in it. At 1440p, there's only 3% in it. So when you actually think about it in those terms, for the improvement that it has in ray tracing and for the minimal loss it has, 3 to 5% in raster performance, plus add in FSR4 if that works well. Damn. I feel like, I don't know. It's an awkward one. The 50 series, because the 50 series hasn't really offered much of an improvement, and it's pretty much kind of a bit of a failure, let's be honest. Especially with the prices that they're selling for. If they were selling for RRP, then that would change, obviously, the way I feel about the 50 series. But in terms of improvement over last gen, it's literally hardly anything. For that reason, I don't feel like I need to upgrade, because there's not really an upgrade path for me. It makes my 4080 still feel very relevant. Looking at this, if this is the top AMD GPU, it still makes my 4080 feel very relevant. I don't need to upgrade that GPU. The XTX, it's relevant. People that have just bought one, you don't need to go out and sell it. I'm not saying other people need to. But the FSR4 thing is what probably troubles me. So I'm going to leave it there. That's my quick look at it. I'm going to make a... No, I've made a decision. If I can get the Sapphire Nitro, which I don't think I will, I reckon it'll sell out. If I can get the Sapphire Nitro for 700 tomorrow, when they get released, I will buy it. And we'll check it out. If that doesn't happen, then... If I can't buy it tomorrow, I reckon the motivation to buy it might have worn off, and I'll just buy some sim racing gear. So I'll leave it there. Let me know in the comments what you think. It's good. Like, this isn't any type of bad. The only bad thing that I've got here is the amount of money that I invested in the XTX to now have to buy one of these, to then still fall short. Both, from what I'm concerned, both generations will still feel short of the 4080. That's my only negative. Other than that, the actual GPU itself, performance-wise, it looks very good. And the cost at 700, if it's available, very good. So I'm going to leave it there. Let me know in the comments what you think. Are you buying one? Are you going to stop me from buying one because you're going to try to buy one before me? If you're in the UK, if you're in the US, you can buy as many as you want. It matters nothing to me. Let me know, and I'll catch you shortly when we probably talk about FSR4. Ciao.